Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. Welcome back into Gamecock Central. Kendall Smith alongside of Wes Mitchell here on the bye week. Things just don't feel right, Wes, because South Carolina isn't playing tomorrow. So I don't know about you, but we're back here for like a non-before the sandstorm episode where we're going to talk about some things with South Carolina football. But do you feel off because there's no game this Saturday?
I feel like there's two bye weeks, honestly. I mean, the SC State weekend was kind of weird, I guess you would say, and now this one as well. But, yeah, we'll take it. And I think it came at a decent time for South Carolina, now 4-2, and a little bit of course, momentum with the fan base going into the bye week.
South Carolina is 3-0 when they have extra time to prepare for a football game, Kentucky being one of those games last week, a couple times last season as well, coming off the bye week and beating Florida. And then next week, they'll come off the bye week to face Texas A&M, a huge matchup at home at 7:30 under the light. So it's certainly going to be a great time, but we didn't want to leave you all hanging. We know you love Before the Sandstorm so much. It's everybody's favorite show ever that Wes and I wanted to come together and do a little South Carolina football mid-season superlatives episode. So we're going to be talking some superlatives, giving out some of our own awards to some of these players midway through the season, and kind of just talk about where we feel like South Carolina is at. So Wes, are you ready to give out some superlatives? I know our awards probably mean so much to the players. So this is a really big episode and people really need to focus in on what we're about to say.
Yeah, I mean, you kid, but do you realize that Before the Sandstorm is the #1 rated South Carolina pregame show that goes live on YouTube every Saturday? Did you know that?
Well, I don't think we have any competition.
Well, don't
But yeah, it is number one, and we're grateful to all of our fans, all of our viewers for making us #1 week after week. It truly is.
Hopefully we're #1 in their hearts as well. But also, programming note, you haven't told me these beforehand, so we're gonna these are gonna be the true off the cuff answers on my part.
They are. So I want to start it off with a broad superlative, and it's going to be hard, I think, to pick just one player for some of these, but I'm going to try to challenge you, Wes, to keep it to just one player for these superlatives. And the first one, through the first 6 games of the season, who do you think has been the most impactful player for South Carolina?
Most impactful. You have answers to these too, right?
I'm going to come up with them kind of on the spot. I haven't really thought ahead of time.
Okay. Most impactful for me has got to be Marshawn Lloyd. I gave him offensive MVP in our superlatives that we did on Gamecock Central in the written version. And Marshawn has just meant so much. I look at wins as well. Like when South Carolina beat Kentucky, I thought Marshawn Lloyd was arguably the best player on the field for them. And I think it's only going to grow from there. But Marshawn Lloyd, fairly easy answer for me.
I was also going to say Marshawn even before you said it. He's been that guy this season that South Carolina has been able to rely on, especially when the offense has stalled at times. He had his first game over 100 yards this year, had another one. So he's been, in my opinion, a guy who's really lived up to the hype. He's really lived up to his name. And we finally kind of been able to see him grow into himself this year after dealing with some injuries over the past few years, which has been great. But for me, he has been that guy that the offense has relied on almost as a crutch sometimes when they haven't been able to get anything going. So Marshawn, the unanimous decision from Wes and I for the most impactful players so far for the South Carolina Gamecocks midway through the season. Wes, your most improved player of the season?
Most improved, again, going to go offense. I'm going to go with Jalen Brooks. He was a starter last year, but really, he missed the second half of the year. Didn't quite make the impact the first half of last year that he has made so far this year. Right up there. I think Juice Wells is their best performing wide receiver. Like he's been like wide receiver 1 in my opinion. But as far as the improvements from one year to the next, being a playmaker, making a lot of big plays for Carolina, the big reverse play to sort of ice the game against Kentucky, catching some balls down the field where he had to adjust to the ball in the air and go up or dive and catch it. Jalen Brooks, there's maybe a couple of other guys you could list, but I feel like Jalen is pretty solidly my guy on this one.
I'm going to have to start going first on some of these because we have a lot of the same answers. I was also going to say Jalen Brooks, just that guy who's really stepped up in his position of play this year. And we've gotten to see him make some really big catches and have some really meaningful moments for South Carolina. And like you said, something he wasn't able to do, especially in the back half of the season last year. So Jalen Brooks, our most improved player. Wes,
I could tell from your reaction. I was like, oh, she
So I'm going first on this one because I don't want people to start commenting that I'm just saying the same things as Wes, because that is not true. I promise we did not talk about any of this before, but I want to move into most underappreciated player for South Carolina.
Ooh,
For me, that's Javon Gwynn. I think he is the most underappreciated player for South Carolina. He just won a big award, Offensive Lineman of the Week in the SEC, coming off of the Kentucky game. I've always said offensive linemen are extremely underappreciated. They're the ones that people will throw the blame on immediately, but if something goes right on the offense, it automatically becomes a great thing on the quarterback or the running back or the receiver. The O-line has so much to do with the offensive success or lack of success. I think that this week with South Carolina having a great game against Kentucky, the offensive line really stepped up, specifically Gwynn. And so I think he is the most hands down underappreciated player on the South Carolina team midway through the season.
I agree. That is a great answer. I'm gonna give the people somebody different. My three people that popped into my head. One was Nate Atkins. I feel like he's done a really good job blocking. He's not much of a part of the passing game, but has done a great job blocking. I feel like Zach Pickens has been a little underappreciated this year. But my guy that I feel like has been underappreciated going all the way back to last year is Darius Rush in the secondary. And I'll admit I'm a little biased towards Darius Rush. Like, I followed his recruitment very, very closely all the way up through, his career at South Carolina. And I just feel like, there's a lot of talk about the other guys, rightfully so, Cam Smith, Nicky Memori. But Darius Rush has been a very solid, consistent contributor for South Carolina. And he's fought through some injuries as well. He's been banged up in several games and come back in. And, I feel like that secondary as a whole that has played pretty well overall, and Darius Rush has been a big part of that. So I'll go with Darius.
I like that answer. I like it a lot. Yeah, we need to give some love to some of these players that aren't so appreciated on the team, and maybe names that you don't hear all the time. So definitely wanted to hit that one in our Superlatives episode today. But the next one, Wes, isn't necessarily a player, but it's more of an area of play. So there's really only a few options for this. Where do you think South Carolina has been the best in terms of areas of play?
Ooh. Do you have an answer already on this one?
I do. I have an answer on this one. And I think it's kind of obvious probably to a lot of people who've been watching South Carolina. I would go, and I'm not even going necessarily like position groups on this, but I'm going just special teams in general. Like, I think that special teams has by far been South Carolina's best area of play. We've seen some trickery throughout the year, little beamer ball 2.0 throughout the year. South Carolina has been great on blocked punts. They've just been really, really strong on offense. Mitch Jeter has been a guy who, you didn't really know what was going to happen there, especially with Parker White leaving, a guy who was so, so huge for South Carolina for so many years. So I'm really impressed with the consistency of special teams. And there's just so many little things that happen on special teams. I was talking to Pete Lembo about it a few months ago, and he's like, if you really look into like the art of special teams and just the little things that can make such a big impact on plays, it's so fascinating. So I've really tried to do that this year, and I've seen the things that South Carolina has been doing that have made impacts on the game. So I've just been really impressed with the overall consistency and reliability of the special teams.
Yeah, I'd love to give people a different answer, but I think that would be disingenuous. Like, the special teams have been on point, and I think, to your point, the thing about special teams is it's not like it's just one unit. You have the field goal unit, you have the field goal block unit, you have the punt unit, the punt return unit, kickoff return. So there are different players and different skill sets that are required to be successful across all of those different units. So if you can have your group be successful pretty much in all of those, that says quite a bit about A, the job Pete Lembo does, and B, the buy-in from this team. And And really the fact that Beamer, it's not just lip service when he says how much attention they put on special teams. I feel like you're not that good on special teams without putting some real actual time into it in practice. All head coaches say, oh, special teams, it's a third of the game. We care about it. But the fact they actually have a true special teams coordinator and didn't just give that job to an assistant as like a tag to what they do on a regular basis. Yeah. And it's been fun to watch. I feel like the fan base has like gotten into the whole special teams thing. And they're only going to get better as the year goes on. We can do a whole show. This is a 100% a Pete Limbo. This is a Pete Limbo loving show, I feel like.
Yes, we support Pete Lembo. Very impressive what he's been able to do with South Carolina as the special teams coordinator and associate head coach. Wes, getting into some more individual awards here. Your top defensive player of the season so far for South Carolina.
Oh, man.
It's hard. It's hard to pick just one.
It is. You know what? I'm gonna go Nicky Memori. I feel like, he's definitely been the top freshman, but I feel like he has been the most important. We're getting maybe into semantics a little bit, but if you were talking about MVP, like most valuable player on defense, Nick got inserted into the game like 8 snaps into the season and has basically like never left the field. Like he's been like, all right, I'm the guy, I'm playing. And they really obviously had some depth issues coming into the season at safety. And then not only did he provide that depth, but he stepped right up and became a difference maker at the safety position as a starter. I kind of like my pick. I'm going with Nick.
I mean, I have a soft spot for Nick. I was there when he signed with South Carolina. He's great. He's super, super fun. I think he's been amazing, and he's going to be one of my award winners. Little spoiler alert for later on in the show. But for me, that person has been Cam Smith. And it's really interesting because Colin Taylor just put out a stat about Cam yesterday. He's been really, really good, Colin said, through 237 snaps, just targeted 13 times in 104 coverage snaps, and he's allowed 6 catches for 38 yards. Quarterbacks have a 21.0 passer rating when targeting his receivers. So maybe a little bit more quiet this year. Like I feel like maybe people haven't thought so much, okay, Cam Smith has been that guy, number one guy on defense this year, but he has been super beneficial for South Carolina and just locked down. And I think that's something that South Carolina obviously really, really relies on when it comes to their defensive success. So Cam Smith, that guy for me.
Well, and for a cornerback, if they're not talking about you, that's normally a good thing because that means, you haven't had a bunch of passes completed on you. So.
Well, I mean, I was cornerback in my powder puff days back in high school. And I will say that I never allowed somebody to catch a pass.
Not a single one?
Not in 3 years. Wow. Locked down.
Kendall lockdown Smith.
Better coverage than concealer under your eyes that's supposed to last 24/7. That's all I have to say.
You could have had an NIL deal there.
Back to my glory days of the powder puff football. So I'll always have a special place in my heart for cornerbacks. Top offensive player, Wes.
Top offensive player.
And let's say, I mean, you can give it to Marshawn again, because I think that would kind of be the go-to answer. But if you want to maybe say somebody else or throw somebody else in there.
Yeah, we'll say it is Marshawn, but I want to give somebody else some love here. I'll take Juice Wells. I mean, he has been very, very good. He's made big plays for Carolina on offense, and we've kind of, I think in the second half of the year, they're maybe going to have to make an even more concerted effort to try to get him the football and like make it a priority. But even without him really being the priority, he stepped up, made a bunch of big plays against Arkansas, had the big play against Kentucky that kind of set the tone in the second half, and then had that awesome block on the Jalen Brooks reverse that went for a touchdown late in that game as well. So, yeah, I think it is Marshawn, but in the case of kind of spreading the love here, let's go Juice Wells.
I'm going Juice too. I won't expand on it anymore. You hit all of the points that I was going to hit. I think Marshawn and Juice have just been kind of those big time playmakers for South Carolina this year on the offense. Top special teams player, I already have mine. It's Mitch Jeter. I think he's really stepped up to his position this year, 6 for 6 on field goal attempts. He's done a great job. It's really hard to come after somebody like Parker White, who made such an impact on this program, and he's done a great job so far this season. So I've been super impressed with Mitch Jeter, and that's why he's my top special teams player.
Yeah, Mitch steps right in, and it's like seamless. So impressive. I can't go against that, but I'll show some love to Kai Kroger. I mean, Kai just does everything. Great punter. He's got a strong leg, but he's really good at downing it inside the 5 or giving his team a chance to down it down there. And dude's a quarterback playing punter. I mean, the ability to provide even the threat of fake punts, I think helps South Carolina. So really, you could give it, if you wanted to cop out, you just give it to everybody who's played on special teams, because everybody has played their part. But certainly Mitch and Kai, well deserved.
I think he's had 3 pass attempts and 3 completions in his career. Kai Kroger has. So good stuff from him. Maybe he was a quarterback back in his day. I don't know. We'll have to ask him if we get him on for a Garnet Trust interview. Top freshman, I think this one is pretty obvious. Nick Eamon-Wari has been that guy all season long, as you already mentioned. I won't get into it, but he has just been a fighter and somebody that has really stepped up to the plate for South Carolina. I also want to give some love, though, to DQ Smith, because he's been thrown out there as well, and he's made some really big plays for South Carolina, too. So those two really, really stick out to me when it comes to the top freshmen.
Yeah, since I gave Eamon-Wari best defender, I was going to show love to DQ. I think, I mean, you played quarterback in high school, and now you're starting SEC football games, playing every meaningful snap in the secondary. That is impressive. Like, let's not just gloss over that. And playing pretty well. Like, I mean, this has been really, really impressive. And you got to be such a sharp person to be able to just pick up the defense and get out there and then turn it into performance. You know, it's one thing to learn it on a board. It's another to actually go perform. So yeah, those two guys and local kids from the Midlands, really cool. Neither one was that highly recruited either, which is, I think, even cooler.
All right, Wes, I have a question for you that's a little bit different for the superlatives. When you're watching the game, this could even be a player on the sidelines. You watch what's going on, you see people's reactions to things. Who do you think is the most entertaining person to watch when they watch South Carolina play?
Oh, man.
I have an answer. It's not even a player. It's actually kind of an obvious answer. Well, there's two. There's two for me.
Okay, give me what you got, Kendall.
First of all, obviously, Shane Beamer. I love looking over onto the sidelines and seeing Beamer's reactions to things. He is a hype man for all of his players, and it is so obvious, but he's very forward with his emotions and how he feels about things. His facial expressions are extremely expressive, and that is very obvious on the sideline. So if he's upset with a call from the ref, you can see that. There was a call last week in the Kentucky game he didn't like. His facial expressions, I was watching it the entire time. When something good happens, he's super excited, like just a very emotionally expressive person. So I think he's very entertaining. I also think that Luke Day is very entertaining to watch. He will jump up and down, show his hops, like extremely expressive as well. So those are the two that when I'm looking over onto the sidelines to see reactions, I'm looking for those two people to see how they're reacting.
Those are good ones. I feel like there's got to be somebody I'm missing, Kendall. I'll see your Luke Day and I'll raise you Luke Doty. I feel like Luke Doty. Now, sometimes he has responsibilities where he's doing the play calls along with Zeb, signal him in. But Luke gets fired up for his teammates.
Yes,
if you watch him. So we'll show a little love to Luke Doty. I feel like I haven't really watched him, but I almost can guarantee Juju McDowell probably has some good reactions. Like I just feel like that's a given. Another Cam Smith throughout the course of a game is very high energy as well, as we saw in the the Gamecock special that they did on ESPNU. So that's probably there's probably somebody we're missing. I feel like, Kendall.
There's lots of characters, lots of very expressive people on the team that make it very fun to watch them on the sidelines. And we obviously have a great seat to do that, which we're very lucky to have. Last question, last superlative, Wes. What has been your most memorable moment of the season?
Oh,
It can be during game, it can be after a game.
Most memorable for me. I feel like this is a cop-out answer. You may change my mind with yours. Right now, the first thing that popped in my head was actually the reverse that capped off, that iced the Kentucky game, when Jalen Brooks scored and then waved goodbye to the Kentucky crowd. Like that was,
I was right there
like,
for that. That was amazing. That
was chef's kiss. Like that was really nice. The moment this season that literally made my jaw drop was when Marshawn Lloyd jumped the guy against Charlotte.
That's a great one.
I seriously, I stood up and I seriously just was like it was a legitimate. That doesn't really happen all that often where I'm just like, it was legitimate. Did he just do that? So
yeah,
one of those two. What you got?
Mine wasn't even something that happened during the game. Those are two really, really great answers. I probably would have gone with the Marshawn play if I had to pick something that happened during the game. For me, because I was right there, I was on the field as soon as this happened. It was Shane Beamer running back from center field at Kentucky, coming towards the fans who were there for South Carolina. His emotions, the way he was reacting, his family right behind him, that was incredibly memorable for me because it was so obvious how happy he was. And then string that into about 5 minutes later, he comes into the room for his press conference and he starts getting emotional and tearing up and crying. And that is something that I'm going to remember for a long time, just that whole string of emotions from him after that win. And I was right there, like right in front of it all, literally 5 feet from Shane Beamer as this was going down. So that is the most memorable moment of the season so far for me. And I'm sure we'll have plenty more.
Yeah, so far,
because this is only midway through the season. South Carolina facing Texas A&M in Game 7 on October 22nd. I can't even get the dates right in my head. October 22nd, 7:30 at Williams-Brice Stadium. Wes, I enjoyed handing out these superlatives. Maybe we'll send out trophies, flowers. It'll be a whole ordeal because we know that these Gamecock Central midseason superlatives are just everything any player could have ever wanted.
These are very highly valued rewards, Kendall.
Exactly. Well, we appreciate all of you tuning in to this episode. Wes, thank you so much. I'm Kendall Smith. He's Wes Mitchell. This has been South Carolina football midseason superlatives on Gamecock Central, and we will see you all soon.